General Hospital JH spoilers indicate that the ABC soap has just released its preview video for the week of June 23rd to 27th, and it is explosive on all aspects. The teaser concluded with a heated confrontation between exes Willow Tate, Caitlin McMullen, and Michael Corinthos, Rory Gibson. They appear to be in the living room of the Quartermain Estate Gatehouse, the family's former home, when Michael warns Willow, "If you marry Drew, I will make sure you never see our kids again." Yikes! Given Michael's recent award of full guardianship over Wiley Corinthos, Viren Weaver, and Amelia Corinthos, Sequoia and Serenity Mork Mako, Willow should take this threat seriously. Unfortunately, Willow's mental state remains unstable, as she continues to be influenced by Drew Kane, Cameron Matheson. It's unclear why she's in the Gatehouse or Quartermain Estate in the first place, as Michael was unsure whether the kids should see their mother during the week of June 23rd to 27th, despite Amelia's request for her at bedtime one night. Was Willow welcomed, or did she sneak onto the property? That appears unknown at this point. However, it appears that Willow will, inadvertently, notify Michael of her marriage intentions with Drew during their conversation. Will she have a ring when she sees Michael? Will he notice it? That's difficult to say, but Drew and Willow's wedding plans are a horrible idea on so many levels. The entire concept arises from the belief that as a married couple, they'd appear significantly more united against single dad Michael. This is a legal method that Michael and Willow utilized to gain custody of Michael when Willow's twin sister and Wiley's biological mother, Nellie Benson Chloe Lanier, was battling for custody. The plan may appear fine at first glance, but Drew and his wild ideas are what got Willow into this situation in the first place, or so it appears, although fans know that Judge Eva Heron Tessa Bergenois was bought and paid for by Jen Sidwell Carlo Rota. Regardless, Willow's friendship with Drew sparked Michael's desire for sole custody in the first place, and Michael was more than happy to compromise if Willow kept her relationship with Drew away from the kids. In reality, Michael has always used this as a negotiating tool. Nonetheless, Willow has never wavered in her support for Drew and their romance. Willow may not be able to marry Drew if Tracy Quartermain, Jane Elliott, or anybody else spills the beans on his affair with Nina Reeves, Cynthia Watrose. If Willow starts making wedding preparations and does not heed Michael's warning, Michael may start making his own. With sole custody, Michael can fly away with the children on a jet plane, as he planned to do if he lost the custody battle. With Corinthos and Quartermain's money and power, Michael, Wiley, and Amelia could establish a family home anywhere in the globe, away from Willow, and she would never see her children again. That is unlikely to happen, as Michael has only recently returned to Port Charles, but theatrics of a threat like this, as well as Willow's reaction given her unstable mental health, would make for wonderful daytime drama, right? Still, General Hospital spoilers remind fans that there are other ways to skin a cat, so Michael's aim may not be to flee with the children, but rather to ruin Drew and Willow in other ways. However, he may limit Willow visitations in the meantime, which may result in a speedy wedding so that they may move on with the appeal even faster. Willow Corinthos never anticipated the day when Michael, the guy she loved, the father of her children, the person she had stuck by through unimaginable trials, would look her in the eyes and issue an ultimatum that left her breathless. His voice, usually so steady and serene, was tinged with anger and grief. She noticed it in the way his jaw clenched and the coldness in his stare. And when he said it, "If you marry Drew, you'll never see the kids again," her entire world shifted. For a brief while, she wondered if she had misread him. Michael had been angry before, even vindictive on occasion, but this was something else. This was not Michael lashing out. It was calculated, controlled. He spoke as if he had planned them ahead of time. Willow blinked, too astonished to respond. She felt tears well up in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not yet. Not in front of him. It wasn't like she hadn't noticed the symptoms. For weeks, their relationship had been crumbling. Since Drew's return to Port Charles, an unspoken bond had evolved between her and the guy who had once considered Michael a brother. Drew had been there for her when Michael had grown distant, when Sonny's enterprise took precedence and family drama dominated their lives. Drew had observed her, listened to her, and gave her comfort as Michael withdrew within himself. But she never anticipated her developing connection to Drew to come at such a high cost. "I can't believe you just said that," she finally muttered, her voice rough and subdued but full of shock. Michael did not waver. His arms were crossed, his posture tight, as if he was holding himself together through sheer determination. I'm protecting our children. From me. Willow stepped forward, wounded. From their mother? From the life you're choosing, he retorted. You understand who Drew is, what he has done. Do you believe that identifying yourself with him will not have consequences? I'm not allowing our children get sucked into that mess. Willow shook her head, tears starting to fall despite her best attempts. This is not about Drew. This is about you feeling out of control. Michael did not answer immediately. He turned away from her and ran his hand through his hair in frustration. When he spoke again, his tone was lower. I have tried, Willow. I have tried to be patient. I tried to ignore the reality that you've effectively shut me out emotionally for months. But this? Are you with him? I can't do it. I haven't done anything wrong, she explained, but her voice faltered. Because she knew Michael's rage wasn't completely irrational. Her heart had begun to waver, and while she hadn't fully acted on it, her feelings for Drew had become more complicated than she cared to admit. She did not intend for it to happen. She did not want to hurt Michael. But the loneliness, tiredness, and continual tension had created a void that Drew had effortlessly filled. You crossed a line, Michael stated again, this time facing her. And I will not stand by and allow it to continue. If you marry him, if you even think about a future with him, I will fight for full custody. You will not get close to Wiley or Amelia. Not without a court order. Willow's breath caught. Are you threatening me with my children? I'm protecting them, he insisted, his voice firm. The hush that ensued was deafening. Willow had no idea how long they stood there, staring at each other. Two people who once believed they could overcome anything are now broken by the weight of their decisions. She turned and left the room. She did not glance back. Her hands trembled as she closed the door behind her, and by the time she got to her car, she was sobbing uncontrollably. The fallout reverberated throughout the Corinthos family for the following few days, like a surprise storm. Carly was the first to confront Michael after hearing whispers about what he said. She confronted him in the Metro court, her eyes blazing. You said Willow wouldn't see the kids again if she married Drew? She snarled, barely keeping her voice down. Michael did not back down. I'm doing what I have to do. Carly was infuriated. You're arming your children. That is not who you are, Michael. Maybe you don't know who I am anymore, he stated plainly. But Carly did. And that is what worried her. Michael had changed. Michael, who previously believed in second chances, forgiveness, and doing what was best for everyone, had become hardened by too many betrayals. Sonny's decisions, Nina's machinations, endless falsehoods, power battles, and secrets. All of it had worn him down, and he was now carving indelible lines. Meanwhile, Drew kept quiet in public, but the inner stress was a different story. He'd kept his distance, knowing how scrutinized their connection would be. But when Willow arrived at his door late one evening, red-eyed and shaking, he realized the time for caution had passed. I don't know what to do, she said softly as he placed his arms around her. Drew kept her close. We will figure it out. Together. It wasn't a formal declaration of war, but it seemed close. Because now they had to prepare for a fight none of them wanted yet couldn't avoid. Willow anticipated a difficult journey ahead. Michael didn't make idle threats. He had already began chatting with Diane, and Diane, for all her fairness, was well versed in the law. If it came to court, things would get ugly. Willow had a clean background, a steady career, and no history of abuse or neglect. But Michael was a Corinthian, which meant power, connections, money, and leverage. And if he portrayed Drew as a threat, as someone untrustworthy because of his experience in Pentonville, the optics could persuade a court. Willow wasn't afraid of the courthouse. What concerned her the most was what the war would do to their children. Wiley was already questioning why Mommy didn't return home some evenings. Amelia was too young to understand, but Willow could see the unease in Wiley's eyes. He was a sensitive child. Too intelligent for his age. He knew when something was wrong. And no matter how softly they attempted to explain, the reality was unraveling right in front of him. Days went into weeks. The Corinthos family was divided along quiet lines. Nina, unsurprisingly, intervened in the issue, side with Michael out of obligation rather than conviction. She blamed Willow, still hurt by their years of conflict, and thought Drew had manipulated her. Ava cautioned Nina to keep out of it, reminding her that any involvement could push Willow further away and potentially harm any remaining relationship with Wiley. Brooke, Lynn, and Chase were ostensibly impartial, but in private, they provided Willow support. Brooke Lynn, ever the realist, cautioned Willow about Michael's nasty behavior when he felt cornered. "He gets it from Carly," she added, only half joking. Even Sonny was upset by Michael's handling of the incident. He hadn't forgiven Michael for his previous betrayals. Michael had attempted to have him arrested after all, but this was different. This was not a business. This was family. He requested to meet with Willow alone. They gathered on the footbridge, hidden from inquisitive eyes. Willow approached warily, unsure what to anticipate. "I'm not here to take sides," Sonny explained calmly. "But I want to understand what's going on." Willow told him the truth. About the distance, the breakup, her blossoming relationship with Drew. Michael issued an ultimatum. Sonny listened without judgment. When she finished, he nodded slowly. "I've made a lot of mistakes," he said. "But I never exploited my children to harm others." Michael is outraged, but that does not make this right. "What should I do?" Willow asked gently. "You do what you've always done," Sonny instructed. "You put your children first. No matter what." That night, Willow made a decision. She requested Diane to represent her. If Michael was going to drag her to court, she'd meet him there. Not because she intended to destroy him, but because she refused to be coerced into giving up her happiness, dignity, or motherhood. Diane started gathering evidence. Character witnesses. Employment records. She also obtained surveillance footage from the hospital showing Willow working lengthy shifts in the pediatric department as proof of her commitment. They planned for every angle Michael would take. Meanwhile, Michael's confidence began to wane. As he fought the custody battle, he became increasingly isolated. Wiley could feel his father's tension. Amelia cried more frequently. Michael began to wonder whether he had crossed an uncrossable line. Carly, who had previously supported his every decision, now openly questions his motivations. "You're trying to punish her," she explained one evening. "You say it's about protecting the kids, but I think it's about punishing her for choosing someone else." Michael did not respond, but guilt flashed behind his eyes. The court date has arrived. The judge was severe but fair. Both sides presented their case. Diane provided a calm, methodical defense of Willow's parenting. Michael's attorney emphasized Drew's past, mentioning his prison time and criminal ties. However, when it came time for personal testimony, Willow's remarks silenced the audience. "I never wanted this," she admitted. "Michael and I created a family through pain, love, and loss. I have never attempted to take his children away. I've done everything I could to help them, but I refuse to let him use our children as leverage since I have found solace in someone else." She did not cry. She spoke eloquently and passionately, and in that moment, the courtroom witnessed not only a mother, but a woman struggling for her identity. Michael listened, unaffected at first, but as she talked about Liam, Harmony, and how Drew had assisted her through her bone marrow transplant recovery when Michael was unable, something shattered in him. By the end of the session, he requested to talk alone with the judge. What they talked was private, but hours later, Diane notified Willow that Michael had withdrawn his full custody plea. He had conceded, not out of defeat but because something within him had changed. He observed how this was affecting everyone, especially Wiley. Even while it hurt to think about Willow and Drew, he couldn't justify breaking their family apart any further. The conflict ended quietly, rather than with a bang. Willow returned home, her partial custody reaffirmed. They devised a new timetable that kept the children safe, secure, and surrounded by affection. Michael apologized not for the threat but for losing sight of what was important. It wasn't a perfect finish. There were still wounds, continued awkward drop-offs, and underlying resentment. However, there was also healing. Willow remained steadfast throughout it all. She did not rush into a marriage with Andrew. She took her time. She concentrated on her children, on healing, and on rediscovering joy. because she had discovered something Michael had overlooked until it was almost too late. Love could not be forced. It needed to be picked. Freely, honestly, and fearlessly. According to General Hospital GH spoilers, Drew Kane's Cameron Matheson, world is about to take a bad turn. The daytime soap has recently published its teaser video for the week of June 23rd to 27th, and a scene suggests Tracy Quartermaine, Jane Elliott, may reveal details regarding Drew's affair with Nina Reeves, Cynthia Watt-Rose. Drew is shown speaking in front of a podium, with Port Charles journalists holding cameras and videos in the audience. As he states that his Aunt Tracy has something to say, there are flashes and rumblings from the press. Tracy comes up to the stage, stops, and then says, "I have to tell you the truth." The video cuts to Martin Gray, Michael E. Knight, and Kai Taylor, Jens Austin Astrup, who appears surprised among the PC journalists who are chattering. Brooke Lynn Quartermaine Chase, Amanda Seton, also appears in the scene muttering, "Oh no." Her husband Harrison Chase, Josh Swickard, appears to be feeling uneasy to say the least. Of course, Martin was attempting to schedule a press conference for the week of June 16th to 20th, during which Tracy would apologize to Drew and officially welcome him back into the Q fold by restoring his Quartermaine moniker. This was all done in an attempt to get the ketamine charges reduced. Fans know Tracy dislikes apologizing, even when she is wrong, so they suspect she may have something up her sleeve. After all, she has known about Drew and Nina's affair since November 2024. Cody Bell's, Josh Kelly, outburst at the pub was videotaped, and Tracy and her son, Ned Quartermaine Wally Kurth, had a bird's-eye view of Cody's spill about Nina and Drew on their mobile phones. The two decided to sit on the secret until the perfect time, and it appears that this lovely day has finally arrived. Or did it? There's a significant likelihood that GH is misleading fans by making them assume Tracy would reveal information about Nina and Drew, when she actually tells the press something completely different. Drew has done a number of bad things recently, so she could find out about any of them and rat Drew out in front of the media, using this tidbit instead. How horrible would it appear if Tracy found evidence that Drew told Wiley Corinthos, Viren Weaver, that Michael Corinthos, Rory Gibson, did not care about his two eldest children now that Daisy, Levi Clark Coughlin, is involved. She serves on the hospital's board and may have access to a video, as the medical center has extensive surveillance. Could she get camera footage of Drew placing that ketamine vial in her car? Drew and Willow Tate, Caitlin McMullen, discovered firsthand last year that the Q's mansion is also full of video cameras. The atmosphere in the Quartermaine mansion had been tight all morning. Tracy Quartermaine had called a press conference with only 24 hours notice, and while the family was used to unexpected drama, this one had a particularly harsh edge. Olivia had tried to elicit answers from Tracy, but she had remained frustratingly tight-lipped, dismissing worry with a tight smile and a cryptic phrase about letting the truth breathe. Tracy was never one to pull punches. Her reputation for ruthlessness, acute intellect, and a penchant for show preceded her, and as she stood at the podium that day, eyes gleaming, she was well aware that the entire audience was watching her with bated breath. The media had gathered in force, anticipating a juicy boardroom scandal or a shift in ELQ's corporate strategy. What they received instead left them stunned. Tracy adjusted the mic and cleared her throat. "I want to thank everyone for coming today," she said calmly, her voice completely calm. "It's not every day the truth gets to walk into the sunlight uninvited." There was a pause, a dramatic beat, before she dropped the bomb. "As of today, I am withdrawing from active engagement in ELQ's leadership, but before I do so, I owe the shareholders and this town some long-needed openness. Because, for far too long, those who manipulate the story behind the scenes have been shielded. That ends today. I won't keep anyone's secrets anymore. Particularly not Drew Kane's. And not Nina Reeves." The reporters took a collective breath. Olivia gasped audibly from her position in the back of the room. Drew, who had assumed that the news conference was about restructuring, stood still at the stage, his face blanching. Nina hadn't even been invited. Tracy had made sure she'd find out about it through the press, just like everyone else. Tracy persisted, unwavering. For the past 6 months, Drew Kane and Nina Reeves have been having a hidden affair, which began while Drew was still romantically linked with Carly Spencer. And while I understand Port Charles's great tolerance for infidelity, this is more than simply a personal betrayal. It's about power, duplicity, and the exploitation of two powerful families for personal advantage. Reporters began shouting over one another in an attempt to obtain confirmation, facts, or anything else. Drew moved forward as if to speak, but Tracy halted him with a searing gaze that virtually singed the air between them. "You had your chance, Drew," she continued, her tone chilly. "You could have come honest to Carly. You could have come honest to your daughter. Instead you lied. You led this town to believe you were the moral compass, the morning hero, all while carrying on with a lady who has already wiped out one branch of the Corinthos family tree." Tracy's gaze shifted to the camera lenses, as if she were speaking directly to the residents of Port Charles who were watching the live broadcast. "This isn't gossip. This is not speculative. This is the truth. And I can prove it." Then followed the images, which were emailed to every reporter in the room as Tracy finished speaking. Drew and Nina in candid shots, holding hands in the shadows outside a hotel, kissing in secret nooks of Metro Court, and meeting in Drew's penthouse at night when he claimed to be on business. It was undeniable. The place burst into turmoil. Reporters fired questions at Drew like grenades, and he appeared to be about to explode or disappear. He didn't respond. He did not refute it. He simply turned, tightened his jaw, and walked out the back of the press room. Tracy remained on the podium, a pillar of steely determination amidst the fury she had unleashed. Later, the film would be broadcast repeatedly on local news and gossip websites. The controversy sent shockwaves through the corporate sector, Deception's board, Crimson's editorial staff, and, most importantly, Carly Spencer's life. Carly hadn't watched the news conference live. She'd been at Kelly's, stacking inventory and pretending her heart hadn't been bruised by the month-long distance between her and Drew. She had no idea what to make of it, the gradual pull away, the frequent travel, the small changes in his tone. But her stomach fell when her phone began vibrating with messages, missed calls, and the same word repeated over and over: press conference. She did not believe it at first. She could not. Not Drew. Not with Nina. But then she saw the photographs. Carly had always been a warrior, but nothing prepared her for the breathless weight that sank in her chest as she faced the inescapable truth. The guy she had trusted had lied to her in the most personal, gut-wrenching way possible. And Nina, the same lady who had concealed Sonny for months, wrecked her marriage, and infiltrated the family via deception and performance, had now dug her talons into Drew. Jocelyn ran to her mother's side, outraged and protective. "He's dead to us," she said quietly. "Both of them." But Carly didn't say anything. She simply stood there, dead calm, and walked out of Kelly's without saying anything. She knew exactly where she was headed. Back at Metro Court, Nina sat in her office, tears welling up as she witnessed her world crumble for the second time in a year. She didn't want it to turn out this way. The romance had begun discreetly and suddenly, in the aftermath of Drew and Carly's breakup. She and Drew had been thrust together in the shadows, both hurting, restless, and tired of being judged by others. One night led to another. Secrets transformed into comfort. They gradually became something that felt like a haven. But Nina felt something was wrong. She had repeatedly warned Drew that they needed to stop because it would blow up everything. However, Drew believed that they were entitled to happiness. He had stated that Carly would never understand, not really. That she did not perceive him in the same way Nina did. That fantasy had been crushed. Drew attempted calling her after the press conference, but Nina did not answer. Not when his name flashed on her phone. Not even when he left a message saying, "We'll get through this." She didn't believe him anymore. On the Quartermain estate, anarchy had broken out. Brooke Lynn shouted at Tracy for embarrassing her family. Olivia wailed, wondering why she couldn't have warned them. Ned, startled, said nothing for a long time, simply sitting in the library with a glass of bourbon and shaking his head. Tracy defended herself using smart logic. This was not about vengeance. This was about honesty. And if you think protecting a cheater is preferable to exposing him, you don't understand the Quartermain legacy. However, she wasn't quite calm. Deep down, this was personal. Drew had made too many blunders both in love and in career. His union with Nina has the potential to further blur the distinction between Corinthos' power moves and Quartermain's reputation. Tracy would not stand by and watch her family's name fade beneath a pile of secrets. The public response was swift and nasty. Crimson was plunged into pandemonium. The board held an emergency meeting to discuss whether Nina should be replaced. Shareholders want blood. The deception team, already reeling from previous defeats, was concerned that Nina's presence would taint their campaigns. Lucy, barely able to conceal her joy at Nina's demise, wasted no time pressing for her removal. Meanwhile, Carly gradually began to eliminate any traces of Drew in her life. She packaged up the photos, keepsakes, and gifts. She called Diane and asked for legal guidance on how to handle the financial issues that had arisen between them. And she gave a subtle but clear order at Kelly's. Drew Kane was no longer welcome. When he arrived the next day, she met him at the door. "I don't want an explanation," she replied. "Because no explanation affects what you did. You did not simply cheat. You betrayed me with her." He looked devastated. "Carly, I didn't mean for this to happen. I was." She cut him off. "You were what? Lonely? Need to be validated? We all are. But we don't all go to bed with the enemy." He reached out, but she retreated. "You can't touch me. You do not get to fix this. You lied every time you kissed me, and every night you snuggled into someone else's arms." Drew went without saying anything else. The consequences even reached Willow. Learning that Nina had not only lied again, but had also become involved with Drew, her children's uncle, was the ultimate fracture in the already unstable foundation they were attempting to restore. Willow told Nina unequivocally that she wanted no contact and would not allow Nina to see Wiley or Amelia until further notice. Nina sobbed that night, curled on the couch of her empty apartment, while everything collapsed around her. She had persuaded herself it was love and fate, but now it felt more like punishment. And Drew? He roamed. He left town for a few days, avoiding phone calls and queries. He found himself on the docks one evening, staring out at the lake, trying to figure out where he had gone wrong. Was it the affair itself? Or had he lost himself before then? He'd spent so much time attempting to be the better man, the hero, the fixer, the moral center. And now he was none of those things. He was yet another liar with nothing to show for it. Tracy, on the other hand, showed no remorse. "Sometimes the truth destroys everything," she warned Monica over tea the following morning. "But sometimes, everything needs to be destroyed before it can be rebuilt." And she believed it was the last gift she could give the family. Burnt ground but honest earth. Place to start again. As the weeks went, the town fell into a new routine. Carly poured herself into Kelly's, regaining her independence and burying the pain beneath determination. Jocelyn and Dex grew closer as they shared their fury. Willow concentrated on healing her children and her own boundaries. Nina retreated from the center of Port Charles' life, losing power and presence. But certain wounds would not heal. Trust was broken. Families were strained. As the dust settled, Port Charles held its breath, wondering who would emerge next, and who still had secrets to reveal. Because in this community, one truth led to another lie. Tracy Quartermain had just started the dominoes tumbling. General Hospital spoilers for the week of June 23rd to 27th state that Nina Reeves will persuade Willow Tate to calm down and avoid rushing into marriage with Drew Kane, but her daughter is unlikely to listen. Willow's upcoming meeting with Michael Corinthos at the Quartermain house may reveal that her wedding to Drew is imminent. That announcement may convince Michael that keeping Willow away from the children is the proper decision. Nina, on the other hand, will seek assistance from an unexpected source later on, necessitating a fresh collaborative effort. According to GH teasers, Drew will get some insider information. Could Drew have been tipped off about Judge Eva Heron's bribe? If that's the case, Drew will undoubtedly suspect Michael or one of his other wealthy loved ones of corruption. Drew may not be aware that Jen Sidwell is to blame, but that revelation could come later.